Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Laws of Physical Evidence, hosted by Dr. David Lipman and brought to you by the Laws of Life Webcast Network. What is up, Dr. David?
Yeah, it's good to see you, Blanca.
What's going on, Arnold?
I'm feeling very pumped today. I was working on my biceps, my pecs this morning, feeling very pumped.
I'm glad to hear that. I like when you get pumped up. What are you going to teach us today?
Well, I'm going to take my own spin on an old cliche that we've heard, and that is, if you don't use it, you lose it. And my spin on it is the brain won't show where the body can't go. So in other words, the brain always has to control all of our movements. And many times what happens as part of people, becoming dysfunctional and in pain is that the brain is no longer controlling certain parts of range of motion of any given joint or, complexity of joints as they work together. So if the brain isn't able to control those ranges, you lose those ranges. And that's where the dysfunction, happens, where eventually, it'll lead to a pain syndrome. And it's many times when it happens, like somebody doing an everyday movement, like going to bend over to put on their sock, and all of a sudden they can't straighten up. I can't tell you how many times people have come in with that particular reason for getting hurt, or, I don't know what I did. I just, turned to bend over and brush my teeth or pick something out of my drawer. So, in those everyday movements where somebody is kind of debilitated in one moment, it's because the brain has lost control of some of those, typical movements we do. So the body is not able to really gain and have those motions mechanically correctly. So it's really super important that when you do exercise and you do it on a daily basis to counteract all the wear and tear and the stresses and strains that would otherwise kind of knot us up and tighten us up, that we have a time and a process each day to have a countermeasure against all that winding up and that tension, so the brain could regain control of those ranges of motions, and the proper mechanics of weight bearing and motion, will be able to happen properly to avoid those, those little slip ups where all of a sudden, you can't stand up straight. And so that's really the focus of I want to share today.
I like it. And this is another reason why you should be stretching every day, right?
Absolutely. And, so stretching, mobilizing, creating functional movements of all kinds. And one of the things that I think is important for people to know, because sometimes I believe that the commercial health club industry perhaps puts wrong ideas in people's minds. As an example, we all see at some of the bigger health clubs that all the different individualized machines that isolate a particular body part. And they're usually linear motions, back and forth. If it's like a back row, it's rowing back and then releasing forward. Or if it's shoulder press or a chest press or leg press, whatever it is, we're isolating one particular body part in a movement pattern that's very isolated and one-dimensional. However, that's really not how we function. We function with integrated motions over a three-dimensional plane. So I believe exercise always needs to be geared to be more functional. In other words, the way we really move every day. So creating exercise programs that engage those integrated movements are always so important. We pointed some of them out in the past with some of the torso rotation as an example. One of the things I wanted to focus on today, and this is really, I think, in the last year because of the pandemic and people moving from, better ergonomically sound workstations in an office environment, and now all of a sudden working from home. Some people are fortunate and they do have a good work environment at home, but many people are sitting on like dining room chairs or kitchen tables or their couch, which is not meant for 8 or 10 hours of sitting on a computer. So as a result, that's causing a lot of that tension and dysfunction. How is it for you? I know you work from your home. How is that? How do you find that?
Well, the key for me, my morning exercise, 90 minutes every day, and then in the middle of the day, I take another shorter walk. So I do get out of the chair.
Right, very important. And when people, walk, we're all kind of on autopilot. And part of it is the body does that. The body has its own automated system so we don't have to consciously think about every single step we take or how we're holding ourselves. However, because of the daily wear and tear, we can create bad habits, I'll call them, of, mechanically poor weight bearing and movement patterns. And that's our normal. So without bringing awareness to that, it's very difficult to, sort of break out of those and create a more, posturally sound, mechanically sound, walk, even just from walking as your normal gait. And there's one particular exercise I wanted to bring out today because it really does force the body to, and the brain and body to kind of come together very deliberately to help not only increase the range of motion, but to gain control and gain very much awareness of what's happening, let's say, when you do walk. So we're going to bring in the monster walk video and get a little description and a visual on what that looks like, and we'll discuss it after.
All right, let's take a look.
One of my favorite exercises for hip mobility are what we call monster walks. And the reason I like them is because you're really getting to utilize and focus on getting the hip to extend by engaging the gluteal muscles, because many people unknowingly do not do that. And you're also using it in a normal pattern of motion, which is walking. So as you go through the monster walks, both forward and back, you deliberately engage those muscles that are moving the hip, not only back and forth, but even laterally and rotationally, because again, these are movements that we're capable of, but if you don't use it, you do tend to lose it. So there again, using an exercise with a resistance band, normal pattern of movement, AKA walking, and getting the resistance to sort of give more feedback to the brain of those movements, and almost exaggerating them a little bit because you want to increase your stride, because so many of us, again, that are sitting all day, those pelvic muscles, those hip muscles, those lower back muscles are getting so tight. So we're actually not opening up our stride the way we should. And all that tension that builds up really does, lay the, sort of set the stage for somebody to really get some back pain or hip pain or pelvic pain. So having a countermeasure to that with a very simple to do exercise, you don't need any equipment except for a simple resistance band, and really deliberately doing those bigger stride walks where you're exaggerating it, because that's actually going to give your brain more control back over those ranges that you're probably not using when you walk because you just don't think about it. But it's super important to really do things like this on a regular basis, especially when you're sitting all day and getting everything all knotted up again.
That is such a good point. I love it. And I love how you're demonstrating every week different exercises for us. And it's really powerful. These videos are phenomenal. It's very important. So that's one of your absolute favorites, that exercise?
Yeah, again, for the different reasons of you're engaging a normal, pattern of walking. Walking is something that, we all do. And again, so many people don't realize, as they point out in the video, that when they're walking and they go to extend their hip as they step forward, so the back leg's extending the hip, many people are not actually engaging their gluteal muscle, which is the major hip extender. Many people are unknowingly using their hamstrings instead, which is a secondary hip extender, which actually gets those hamstrings to tighten up because they're doing a primary motion of what they're only supposed to be doing a secondary motion for. So when you learn to engage the glutes, you'll be able to have the proper mechanism there. And that's not only just for what's happening at the glutes, but that's also has to do with the balance of the hip flexors in the front, the stability of the pelvis and the lumbar spine. So there's again, it's an integrated effect, but there's so many people, and if you observe people and watch them walk from behind, you'd see many people don't even engage the glutes. And, people say they have, flat butts or something like that. And it's because they're actually not knowingly do that. But the cool part is that you can very easily retrain your brain to gain back those type of movements, utilizing, the proper movement pattern and the proper, build the proper stability, mobility, and function of those areas. Again, reducing the chance that you're going to have any kind of, problem in terms of back pain, especially when you're, just doing it from some everyday movement. Now, it's especially important for people that are walkers, that do walking for exercise, because the fact that they're actually on the asphalt, which is very unforgiving, and there's a lot of impact that happens. Some people are more heavy-footed than others, but without the proper stability, mobility, and function back there, and utilization of the muscle patterns properly, the chances that you're going to come up and hurt yourself are pretty good. I have a lot of patients, especially in this last year, that have been sitting, on poorly ergonomically sound workstations at home, and their only exercise is walking because the fitness centers are closed. And again, a lot of these problems are happening because they're not realizing that their patterns of mobility are not there anymore because they've been sitting all day. So being able to do these types of stretches and mobility exercises and functional exercises like the monster walk will help to ensure that at least when they are walking, they're getting all those bad patterns unwound and getting back into a more solid pattern. So the walking that they're doing for exercise is not going to come back and hurt them.
I also go, I know this sounds crazy, guys, and I actually go to the kids' playground, and I just do different exercises there because no one's ever there. And it's also covered with a rubber mat. So you can do jumping jacks there without as much pressure on the leg. But you know what I'm seeing for you? I'm having a vision for you. You need to, one day, you're going to come in your exercise clothes and we're going to do a workout on this show together.
Well, we can do that because on the other half of this room here, we actually have an exercise section where we do specialized exercise for patients because nobody leaves here without homework to do, so to speak, to reinforce the changes that we've done here, which really makes the work that I do so much more effective because let's face it, you're the one that's walking around in that body every day. I'm walking around in this body. So nobody's going to affect, your body as much as you and, vice versa for me or for anybody else. So as much as I do the work that I do here in the office and make the corrections, you're going to have the greatest effect on your body because you're doing it every day. So it becomes your responsibility for you, me for me, and so on and so forth. So knowing these things for the everyday life are very essential. And that's a good challenge that you put me up to because I'm going to put something together that I think will be very meaningful for people that they can sort of take home and run with right away.
You know what? I think we should invite Lindsay too. She just gave you a big shout out, and Lindsay just won the Silver Linings Award on Monday.
Yes.
She said, I recommend Dr. Lipman to everyone. You're a healer, then you're the best ever. So maybe we can make it a little party.
Well, God just said yes because He put that same thought into my head the other day when I thought of who do I want to work with next on my show, and you just said it because that's exactly who came in mind. So, Lindsay, you're on. You're in. I can't wait to work with you again.
Hey, Lindsay. I hope you're still watching. And thanks for checking in and saying hello. That's what makes the show fun. Engagement, comments. If anybody asks an amazing question of Dr. D, you can also win a free 30-minute Zoom consult. And that is worth thousands of dollars because, as you can see, you are truly a fountain of wisdom. So that's extraordinary. So if you wanted everybody to do one thing today, what would it be, Doc?
I would definitely say to get yourself a mini band and start doing monster walks, being very, very deliberate when you go forward that you're going heel toe, almost exaggerated. And as you strike your heel, you contract the gluteal muscle on that side. And then as you push forward to step forward in the next round, you do the same thing on the opposite side and do it almost like a monster walk. Think about Frankenstein walking. So very deliberate. Try to open the stride and do the same thing in reverse. However, when you go in reverse, it's not heel toe, it's toe, then heel. And if you just pull that video up one more time, maybe they can just kind of see that quick if we have enough time. If we don't, that's okay. But one of my favorite exercises for hip mobility are what we call monster walks. And the reason I like them is because you're really getting to utilize and focus on getting the hip to extend by engaging the gluteal muscles, because many people unknowingly do not do that. And you're also using it in a normal pattern of motion, which is walking. So as you go through the monster walks, both forward and back, you deliberately engage those muscles that are moving the hip, not only back and forth, but even laterally and rotationally, because again, these are movements that we're capable of, but if you don't use it, you do tend to lose it.
That's awesome.
Thank you again for showing that. So again, I want everybody to really take home the message that, again, if the brain don't know it, the body can't show it. So let's get the brain and the body to start working together and optimizing mobility and stability and function so everybody can feel good every day.
I love it. And I love how you're constantly inspiring us and reminding us how there's so many different elements of taking care of our physical health. The Laws of Physical Evidence is brought to you by Dr. David Lipman, the founder of Physical Evidence Chiropractic. And his website is physicalevidencechiropractic.com. His number is 674-1217, and you can take a picture of the QR code as well and get his entire link tree and stay connected. Dr. David, it is always such a pleasure and an honor to spend Thursday morning with you. Wishing you a beautiful day, and we'll see you next Thursday at 11 o'clock.
Thank you, Blanca. It was fantastic.
Thank you, Anna.